Good YouTube, welcome back to the channel. This is the Texans Better Talk Show. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily Texans content. Really appreciate the support we've been getting, and I've been popping out videos every single day. So if you're a Texans fan or you just want to hear about what's happening with the Texans, like and subscribe. And we're going to be doing more draft content today. So today we are going to be talking about 5 receivers that the Houston Texans should draft. And I'm breaking this up by round. So third round, second round, first round. Now, I think the main thing that I can say before I even get into this video is there's going to be a risk factor that's going to come in constantly throughout this video. It's going to be the theme of it. And what I mean by that is I don't think the Texans are currently in a position to where they can afford to take gambles or take risks on wide receivers. I think they need to focus on high floor wide receivers who maybe don't have as much upside. But like, think about it. If you miss on a wide receiver in like the second round, you have Nico Collins, and if we don't get Stephon Diggs back, that's pretty much it. Mechie and Hutchinson haven't really stepped up. So we really need receivers who have high floors. Now that being said, there's still a couple project receivers in this list that I think would be amazing if the Texans could work out. And so yeah, let's just get straight into the list. And kind of starting with one of those receivers. At the bottom half of round 3, I have Savion Williams as a receiver the Texans should draft. Now, Savion Williams will make your eyes pop out of your sockets when you talk about his stats. He's 6'5", 225 pounds. Let me say that again. Savion Williams is 6'5", 225 pounds. He is by far the biggest wide receiver I have on this list. He's from TCU, and he's actually from Marshall, Texas. Currently a redshirt senior. So he received a Senior Bowl invite, and his potential is through the roof. Savion is going to be a player that I think some NFL teams will bite on in the second round, but he's a project, right? I don't think the Texans have that ability to try to bite on him in the second round, but I think if he's in the third round, go ahead and take him. Let me read you some more of this dude's stats. He has a 10-foot, 6-inch broad jump and a 40-inch vertical. Let me say this again. He's 6'5", 225 pounds, and has a 40-inch vertical. He benches 335, he squats 600, and he power cleans 350. So he's an animal. He's an athletic freak. He has the long speed. So now getting into his actual game as a wide receiver, he has the long speed. He's extremely fast, and he's used all over the field. So they snap the ball to him in like a wildcat quarterback formation at TCU. And he also played running back. He obviously was very good at the outside wide receiver position. And then he played a little bit in the slot, by far the least of all that, but still had good snaps as a slot receiver too. So throughout the season, he put up 60 receptions and 51 rushing attempts. On those 51 rushing attempts, he averaged 6.5 yards a carry. So again, this dude is used all over the field. He's a little bit of a project. But he does have like a little bit of a release package as well. It's not like some dude that, they moved from running back to receiver and he can only run straight. Like, I don't want to kind of dumb down his prospect, profile or whatever to that level. But he definitely needs a little bit of work when it comes to that. He kind of reminds me of like a Deebo Samuel type player. I do think Deebo, obviously was a better receiving threat necessarily, and more versatile at the receiving aspect, coming out of college. But Savion still has that mentality of like, let's just snap the ball to him or let's hand it off to him and see what happens. So that's what I really like about him. So what are the concerns and why is he a kind of a riskier player that I would only take in the third and not in the second? Well, he's a work in progress wide receiver. He needs route tree help. His routes aren't the cleanest. They're not the best. There's a lot of wasted movement in his releases. He has probably one of the worst release packages of the people on this list. He also tends to lunge at the ball when he catches it. Instead of just popping his hands up and catching the ball, he'll lunge, or worse, he'll like fold. So he'll really fold and try to catch the ball on his body. And that being said, he's an elite contested catch, guy. Like, he has an elite contested catch percentage, probably due to his size, but there are concerns about, his folding and his just the tendency of him to press the ball against his chest. And one other thing I'll say about Savion is the Texans developed a Nico Collins. They've developed a big, tall, physical wide receiver. I definitely think Savion's, he's more of an athletic freak, almost like a DK Metcalf level, but I do think the Houston Texans have some experience developing a player like that. Obviously, he needs a lot more work than Nico Collins did coming out of Michigan. So there is that kind of aspect of his game if you like that. Again, I have him in the third. Other teams might want him in the second, second half of the second, but I really don't think the Texans can afford to make that leap. Okay, so round three, my second pick I would have in round three is Trey Harris. Now, Trey Harris is polarizing. He's 6'3", 210 pounds, plays at Ole Miss. He's from Lafayette, Louisiana. This season, he had 60 catches and 1,030 yards, and he missed like 4.5 games. So the stats kind of jump out at you. Some things I like about Harris: he's very good at adjusting to the ball, and he's very physical. He's not afraid of contact. He'll go catch balls that he knows he's gonna get clobbered by the safety, and he just catches it and he stays in there and he takes the hit. He also makes incredible catches. Like, there are some catches that he makes that just seem very unorthodox, like other receivers wouldn't be able to make them. So I like that about him. He also runs really good vertical routes. He has that vertical speed. He can stretch the field and be that threat. He's like a true X receiver, which I really like. He has the side, he has the speed, and he has a bit of contested catch ability. Could work on it, but he can still make contested catches. Again, attributing to his size as well. So the cons when I talk about Trey Harris: he only has a few releases that he can work with off the line of scrimmage, and that needs to be worked on. His route tree is also extremely short. And the gamble you're taking with Trey Harris is he only running vertical deep routes because that's what Ole Miss wants, and he can run the quick, slottier type of routes, over the middle, that type of thing? Or is he genuinely just like a one-sided, one-dimensional player? That's going to be the big question with Trey Harris. Again, I don't think the Texans can afford to make that gamble until you hit the third round. But I do think, again, other teams might be willing to take him in the second, take him higher. I get pretty scared that he's just a one-dimensional player who can only run the deep threat. Also, a lot of his yards did come from kind of earlier in the season when they played against really bad teams, so there's that factor as well. He is coming off the injury, not worried about that. But as of right now, the biggest con would be you can't play him in the slot. Like, there's only certain kind of packages you can put him on the field with. And he's only really good at that vertical threat. Again, maybe he works out at the combine or whatever, and a team gets their hands on him. They start teaching him more release packages. They start broadening the route tree, and maybe he can accept it and he's good at it. But again, you just haven't seen it yet, and don't know if the Texans should make that gamble. So now moving into round two, and the big distinguisher from round two to round three in this video is simply just their floor, having a higher floor, more ready to contribute, kind of from a day one perspective. Ironically enough, in round two, I have another TCU wide receiver, and his name is Jack Besh. And I think Jack Besh is an absolute sleeper, and I think he will rise after the Senior Bowl and Combine. I think he'll be higher on a lot of people's lists. But again, another receiver from TCU. He's 6'2", 218 pounds. He's an LSU transfer. 62 receptions, 1,039 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Now, the thing I love about Jack Besh is he catches anything you throw at him. He has 12 contested catches, and if you just throw it within his radius, he will come down with it. He will make the catch. Another thing, and another reason why his floor is so high, is because he's an extremely aggressive and violent run blocker. He blocks like a tight end, and I'm not talking about a tight end like Dalton Schultz. Like, he actually blocks like a tight end. There was rumors and speculation on whether he would play tight end, in college, or if he would be kind of a bigger wide receiver. Ultimately ended up being a bigger wide receiver. But I really like this guy. He's bigger. He's not running like a 4.4, but he runs really well for his size. He's fast enough. And again, a really high floor. Like, he's just a physical receiver, 6'2", bigger. You can use him in a lot of different packages, whereas Trey Harris, you kind of concerned about that. Jack Besh has showed you that he can play, inside, outside. He can run block. He can play as a tight end. You can line him up pretty much anywhere, and he really gives you that high floor. And so the only real con I have for Jack Besh that I think is very valid is he's only had one productive college season. And so that's something that's probably going to linger with people. They're probably going to, not want to take him much higher than, late day two, but I like Besh. I think he'll rise, and I think he's a good, solid pick in round two for the Houston Texans. Now, the other receiver I have in round two is Xavier Restrepo from Miami. Now, Restrepo is the smallest receiver I have on my list. He's 5'10", 200 pounds. That being said, man, this dude is a dog, and he just knows how to get open. And that's one of the most important things as a receiver. He's not the most athletically gifted. He's not the biggest guy on the field, but he's an athlete, and he knows how to get open. 75 catches, 1,200 yards, and 11 touchdowns. 93 percentile in separation. So again, he gets open, he creates separation. He can attack different leverages, different corners. He's a slot receiver. You know, you see what you see is what you get. He's going to be effective in the slot. Very polished routes, very quick, very speedy, very high floor. You don't have to worry about a gamble again, a risk. You draft him and you know he can help you instantly from the slot position. And again, he's a dog. I think the reason why he's not higher is because of his athleticism, his build, his size, those kind of qualities. At the same time, 5'10", yes, but he's 200 pounds. So he's relatively big for his size. This isn't like a Tank Dell where, you're 180. So I like that. Some other cons about him, again, not the most natural athlete. He is, but like athletically, I think his size just limits him. So the long speed isn't really there. You start to wonder about his yards after catch ability because, again, his size. But again, still has a great blend of athleticism, great hands, great polished routes, and he really understands the game and really just has a high IQ. And so therefore, I think he has a really high floor in the NFL as a slot receiver. And then finally, the only receiver I want to see drafted in the first round, if we draft a receiver in the first round at 25, is Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. I've already talked about this guy, but I'll talk about him again. 6'1", 205 pounds, a senior. So he's got about 3 inches on Restrepo, only 5 pounds heavier. 61 catches, 757 yards, 9 touchdowns. Actually went over 1,000 yards and had 10 touchdowns if you include the playoffs. Obviously won the Natty. Great route runner, knows how to get open. Again, very intelligent. A lot of the stuff from Restrepo you can kind of copy over to Emeka Egbuka. Obviously, Egbuka has the bigger size. There is the Ohio State connection with C.J. Stroud and maybe Chip Kelly if Chip Kelly becomes the offensive coordinator, so that's great. Again, really high IQ wide receiver. And what I like about Egbuka that maybe, Restrepo I don't love as much is Ibuka's a guy you can, again, keep on any package. Like he can play outside. He can play inside. He wasn't asked to play outside a lot at Ohio State. I truly think he can be an outside receiver, though. So he can stay on the field. Again, he's another willing run blocker. He's very coached up. Again, he's been, in college for quite a while now. So he's coached up. One kind of con that I know you could make about him is that his routes are rounded. He's not like a super jittery, kind of twitchy slant, like pops off the line wide receiver. But that being said, he almost doesn't need to be. He knows how to get open and he can round out his routes and still get the ball. Really good threat over the middle. Again, I mentioned how he could still be a threat on the outside. So again, super high floor receiver. The only other con I would say is like I don't think he's the best athlete. And I think that's really what stops him from being at the top of this class or, being like a set in stone wide receiver 1 in the NFL. So I think he's a high end wide receiver 2, low end wide receiver 1 in the NFL. But still, high floor. It actually kind of works out because the Texans are positioned in a place where he realistically could fall to 25. That would be very nice. And again, a willing run blocker. So that's really all I got. Just to kind of recap, in the third round, I would be fine taking Savion Williams or Trey Harris. In the second round, I'd be fine with Jack Besh, kind of a reach, but wait on him, trust me. And then Xavier Restrepo. And then finally in the first round, I only want and I would want Emeka Egbuka at that first round, number 25 overall. So that's my list. Let me know what you guys think about that. Are there any receivers I missed that you really like? And then what do you think about the whole strategy of drafting high floor instead of taking gambles? Yeah, so let me know what you guys think about that. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. So that's all I got for this video, man. I'll see you all in the next one, man. Peace out.